Yeah, let's just do it. Let's just do it. Let's talk about the elephant in the gym. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you have by now at least seen or heard about probably one of the at least outwardly nicest people on social media in the fitness space being physically assaulted in a gym by a guy who's at least 1.5, if not 2 times his size. Which, I'll just pause there before we get into like the larger scale issue at hand. But like when you saw that, Bryce, like what was your initial reaction to that video?
We want to maybe just like introduce what the fuck we're talking about, because there might be some people who just have absolutely no clue what we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I figured we would probably just get into it, but no, I mean, obviously, again, if you haven't heard, Jeff Nippard was physically assaulted by an individual who had a different bodybuilding fitness ideology than he. And
let's take one more step back. Who is Jeff Nippard?
Oh shit. Okay, yes. Shit. So if you don't know who Jay Nip is, he's in the fitness space. He's been one of the more like strong science based, super just like unassuming, not super threatening, but like always about the science. He wants to help people. He wants to empower people through educational videos, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so Jeff, being 5'5", was kind of subtweeted, by an individual who is larger than he is, and essentially is like, hey, these science-based lifters essentially don't know what they're talking about, because if they did, they'd be big. And so obviously that's a very stupid thing to say. There are plenty of coaches in professional sports who never played the sport. There are plenty of people who are masterminds at said thing, but don't have the genetics or whatever to be proficient and a high performer in said sport or, field of play. So stupid. But there was an interaction at the gym that Jeff was at and filming. And supposedly it started pretty unassuming, like kind of just like snide and petty. But it did eventually ascend into like full on physical assault, hand around neck multiple times, pushing and shoving Jeff to the ground, knocking him over things. All caught on camera. So if you haven't seen it, you can go watch it. But yeah, I had some feelings. But what were your initial feelings upon seeing that?
Well, I think the first time I saw it was a reaction video to it or something like that, where someone was like giving the high level overview of what was going on. It was just like, one of those second or third tier content creators who was, kind of leeching off of a first tier content creator and rolled it. So another context point here is that like Jeff Nippard is probably the most well-known fitness content creator. I mean, especially whenever it comes to YouTube. I mean, he's pulling in millions of views on every single YouTube video that he puts out. He's been doing it for a decade plus. Like the guy's been around and, universally well liked. Like I do not, for all of the controversial figures in fitness and bodybuilding and this world, he is one person I don't know if I've ever heard a negative thing about. Like, and he's in a position of status where like it's very easy for people to want to like tear him down and like talk shit. But like, honestly, I don't think I've ever heard a single negative thing about Jeff Nippard, which is fucking crazy, kind of. So yeah, I mean, it's like he's a relatively smaller dude, short. He's got muscle on him. Like, I mean, he's a pretty well built guy, but he's short. I mean, he's what, like 5'5", something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, clearly not very physically intimidating. So whenever you see someone who is in a lot of ways very physically intimidating and they know it and they're using that as like almost a weapon for intimidation. And this big Mike guy, again, like I had seen some of his stuff. I had no fucking idea who he was before this. But I mean, he's got to be 6'5". I mean, he's a big dude and he's just like, tatted from head to toe. So, very jail yard looking dude, like just kind of a scary dude. You think of someone who looks intimidating, like that stereotype. That's kind of this. But no, the first reaction that I had was, holy shit, like that's insane. And I didn't even know what spurred it at first. I was just like, what the fuck? Like, why would someone attack Jeff Nippard? Like, that seemed insane. And there was a moment in my head where I was like, damn, Jeff Nippard, he must have said something. Like, he must have like really called that dude out or like talked shit to him or just like whatever, right? But then you see the original video, and it is like the most respectful shit ever. And it was a response to the other guy's subtle shit talk that he put out before, like what you said. So it was like this big mic guy talking about how science-based people are small because they pay attention to science. Okay. And then it was Jeff Nippert being like, actually, like I have all of these accomplishments in bodybuilding and powerlifting and just lifting in general. So maybe I do kind of know what the fuck I'm talking about. And then it was like, what the dude just like got so pissed about that for whatever reason. Like you watched the Jeff Nippert response video to him actually being dissed. Wow, I feel like we're fucking TMZ right now. But anyway, it's and it really is like so respectful, and it's so
It's Jeff. It's very Jeff. It's
a nothing burger. Like
yes.
It's absolutely nothing. If someone would have made a video like that responding to me, I'd have been like, okay, Jeff Nippert, cool. Yeah, you have millions of followers. Yeah, talk shit about me all you want, bro. Yeah, blast me. But it really was super respectful. And like we were talking about the other day, how most fitness content creators are not like that in any capacity, because this is an industry that really rewards polarization. It rewards people saying things very demonstratively. It rewards people for creating cult-like identities. And to do that, you have to be very, very, very binary in what you say. It's like, I'm right, you're all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And there's very little there's very little gray area for most things in the fitness industry, especially if you want to build a relatively large following or just have people care about what you're saying. And we've seen that time and time and time again with a lot of this stuff. And also, even people that do put out good content typically do it in a really inflammatory way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like not in any way trying to make friends with how you're putting the content out or how you're, dispelling myths or whatever, right? So that was my initial reaction. My initial reaction was just like, wow, Jeff must have done something crazy to elicit this response. And then you see what it actually was, and you're like, wow, what a sensitive little bitch to get that worked up about something literally so small, like so small it's invisible. Like you had to pull out a microscope to see any type of disrespect from what Jeff did. The most is that he put that dude's video in the background of his video and then he responded to it. Like, I mean, that's literally the most. But yeah. So like, I just think in general, that's a pretty good encapsulation of a lot of things that are wrong with the industry that we unfortunately find ourselves in.
Yeah, like you said, it's encouraged for people looking to siphon off any sort of engagement or intention to be inflammatory, to be very poignant, and even like omit any sort of context. Like they're like, I don't even care this much about this thing, but I have to seem like I'm very much this, right? Like Brett Contreras and fucking Kaz like arguing over how much hip flexion, like how many degrees of hip flexion is. Like, why are you guys calling each other names in the fucking comment section? We see you. Like, why are you attacking individuals who come up with different? Like, there's just a very, very to
Those
keep
are
it.
both just egos. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just ego. I would say that a lot of the issue that we run into is it's the incentives point in a direction that really forces people to be inflammatory. You know what I mean? Like, so if you watch the one original video where the dude is like, yeah, like science-based dudes they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Clearly they're wrong because they're all small. It's like, okay, for 2 seconds, if you think about it, you're like, that's fucking bullshit. Like there's a lot of dudes who are evidence-based or who care about science and are fucking gigantic.
Well, there's that, and there's also the aspect that like if you see a person, like we have a coach on our team, like Tyler Yee. Right? I talk to him about this all the time. Genetically, like he's not predispositioned to be a large and muscular individual, but he has found a way through his knowledge, through his education, to kind of like combat his genes and say, you know what, I'm going to still get big. And so if there's anyone like who has an incentive to really understand the science, it is those people who are disadvantaged in that capacity. So maybe we do trust, their opinion there and understand like, hey, like there's a good chance that he'll never be as big as me, but maybe I can take what they are eliciting, what they're giving out, and I guess soliciting, what they're giving out, but and implement that in my own life and get bigger. And so I think my thing has always been, and I mean, I'll say this, and people will hopefully understand bodybuilding has always been, and the way that bodybuilders interact has always been very like white to me, because I feel like everyone behaves in a way that they don't. No one's been punched in the mouth before. Like it shows that a lot of you guys have never been in fights. You never had to defend yourself. You never had to like say sorry for speaking out of pocket and disrespecting someone. And it's like, it's not that I'm team everyone go fight everybody, but I do think that having a healthy fear of like, this person could hit me in the mouth. They'd be wrong, but I don't want to experience that. So maybe I'll come with just a bit more humility, a bit more respect. And when they don't, it just gives very, very strong bully vibes. And I will say, like, pause, like, fuck bullies. Like, the reason why I don't like bullies is not because they're violent or because they're aggressive. It's because they're only selectively violent and aggressive against people they know they can win against. You chose Jeff Nippert, the guy who's always smiling, the guy who's always kind, and also half your size. Like, come on, my G. Like that to me is where I was like, this is my response to the video. I was like, very much like, I have zero respect for you now. Not just because you have a fragile ego, but because you're a predator. Like, you're just a person who looked for an opportunity to make yourself feel better because you feel like shit. So you found someone you could pick on, and then you did it so you could puff your chest up a little bit. But joke's on you, it backfired because you didn't win a fight. You just picked an asshole.
Well, a big part of this, I think, is it's actually going to end up benefiting that dude, unfortunately, because his, like, I don't know who the fuck he is, but it's pretty clear, like, his personal brand is built on controversy. It's built on us against them type of shit, right? So, like, what was the one?
The 5%ers or yes. Mm-hmm.
It's built on that type of mentality. So after all of this, I'm sure he's gonna get charged. I would love if he went to fucking jail for a bit over this. It's probably not gonna happen. But he's gonna come out of this and he's gonna have a stronger following because of it, because it's going to be the same people that were really wanting to listen to the things that he was saying before. Now he's like a fucking martyr. He's a martyr to the cause, right? He took a bullet for team fucking 5%ers or whatever. And that's unfortunate, right? Because clearly, like, the dude has some fucking problems. And I don't know if this was something that he consciously thought about, or if he was just so emotional in the moment and couldn't control his impulses and then lashed out. I don't know. But there are people that are extremely calculated and could have thought in advance and been like, you know what? This is going to help my personal brand, because I know that if I do this, that Jeff Nippert is going to post about it and other people are going to post about it and there's going to be a lot of controversy about it. Yeah, I might get in some trouble, but ultimately I'm going to come out with a stronger personal brand because of it. I doubt he's that smart, but there are some people that are that smart, like some fucking Machiavellian bitches. Like, they are smart as fuck. They know what they're doing. Again, I don't think that most people in the fitness industry can think, like, 2 steps ahead, much less 10. Right. So I think we're probably good with discounting that one. So he's probably just an emotional little bitch, and he can't handle being quote unquote dissed. Yeah. Right. Being told basically you're fucking wrong and you're stupid. Like, just stop talking.
In such a kind way. Again, such a kind way.
Yeah. Like, you're just stupid. And one big thing, you mentioned it a second ago, it's like a lot of these guys they're not used to real violent interactions. I think a big aspect of that is more of like, think about the types of people that get into bodybuilding seriously.
People who can't play real sports.
Well, I was going to say, it's usually people that start off with some kind of like deep-seated insecurity. And then especially dudes that like really abuse steroids over time, it's like there's some kind of like deep-seated insecurity that's in there. And maybe they were bullied whenever they were kids. Like, maybe there was something going on there that like they used it as an escape, right? And then they built up something that was worth being proud of. And then all of a sudden you start getting respect. And all of a sudden you're kind of intimidating in a lot of ways too. And we've talked about this before. there's a strong correlation between people who do bodybuilding and people who also do other peacocking sorts of body modification, right? Piercings, strong self tanning, tattoos, like all of that shit. It's like, it's how can I peacock alas never in tattoos? So obviously I know the fuck I'm talking about. Um, but I do think that there's a lot going on, and I'm not gonna fucking try and self-diagnose here, but with other people, I think there's a lot going on under the hood where most people will get into bodybuilding because it's very selfish, it's very vain, but also you can control a lot of things going on there. And if you're not able to control a lot of things, maybe at home or maybe at school or in your social environment, bodybuilding can be a great outlet. But you don't just get rid of all of those insecurities whenever you start getting bigger. They don't just go away. They're still there. So then you become this gigantic motherfucker who's just deeply, deeply insecure about everything around him. And that's what you see a lot on social media with these dudes who cannot handle being disagreed with. And they freak the fuck out and they start calling everybody names. And it's like, you're just such a little bitch, dude. Like, you're so insecure. You're like a 14-year-old girl. Whenever someone tells you, actually, you're wrong, and you just freak the fuck out. Like Paul Carter, motherfucker needs to just take a breath every once in a while, right? You see this with like Cass, you see this all these
Lane Norton.
Lane Norton, yeah.
Lane will attack people, like attack casuals, like not even other people like that are quote unquote on his like puristic level, where it's like, oh yeah, like you are at least as smart as me, as studied as me. Like he will attack somebody with 5 followers from Africa and call them a fucking loser and that they should just quit and give up at life. Like that's wild.
Paul Carter, like I don't know if he still does this because I unfollowed him a long time ago because I just cannot deal with the stupidity. But like, dude, back in the day, he would post some shit and people would ask questions in the comments and he would basically be like, fucking idiot, you can't read, like that type of stuff. And I'm like, dude, like, is this real? Like, if I see that now, I would for sure be like, okay, there's no way that normal people act like this. Much less privately than like socially, publicly on social media. This is
On
your
the internet.
This is your personal brand, and you're like just lashing out at people for asking questions in your comments. Like, this is the person that follows you. Actually, they care enough to ask a comment or to drop a comment, ask a question, rather than just like posting your shit on their story and calling you out or telling you that you're wrong. Like, oh, have you thought about this? Or what about this? And then it's just like you attack them. That is insanity, dude. And we were talking about Lane Norton the other day. I've never met Lane Norton, but I probably would not really want to. He just does not seem like the type of person I'd want to be friends with, to be honest. And I mean, truly, no shade at him. He just doesn't seem like a very cool person. Like he seems very, very serious all the time. And maybe there's a reason for that. I'm pretty serious most of the time, but like I feel like I can take myself less seriously, Like I know how to joke. I know how to just like fuck around. There are a lot of people you see, again, especially in this industry, where it's like, oh, have you ever just like smiled or laughed or anything, not at the expense of someone else, like just at yourself? Like, have you ever just like tripped and been like, haha, that's funny? No, I don't think they have, So there's just a lot of shit going on that people from the outside probably don't see. And even if you're peripherally in the industry or someone who likes working out, you maybe follow Jeff Nippard, maybe follow all of these like big personalities, potentially you do see some of the interactions where you're like, this doesn't seem healthy. Like this doesn't seem like a really good, like, debating environment where ideas can be passed around and like thoroughly inspected and dissected to figure out where the truth is. It's just echo chambers developing all over this metaphorical fitness universe. And whenever someone tries to go knock on another door, they just get fucking drop kicked back where they belong, So it's like, it's insanity.
Yeah, no, it is just a very strange place, and because I you know me, I don't tolerate disrespect well, so that's why I stay out of a lot of the shit. I'm just stay over here. just because I do think, like, regardless of laws, there are prices to be paid, and I always think it's kind of interesting that the majority power that is so, oh my god, you see him push him for getting in his face, and I'm like, it's funny because, like, if you go back like several, let's go back to 3 generations, and this was actually quite normal. Like, people would get upset, you'd piss them off, and they would shoot you, they'd hurt you, they'd this or that, and then obviously we want to, so like civility has increased, and I'm like, oh yeah, I also
That doesn't happen anymore, you know?
I think it's like, side note, like 30 seconds long. I think to a degree, I do think that the threat of violence actually made things worse. I mean, the pyramids were built on the threat of violence, and I'm like, great, good things can happen. Obviously, you want to check violence.
Slow. We should.
It's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope, but I think the slope is slippery when there is we brought guns and you brought bow and arrows. Like, obviously, but like, it was like, hey, everyone's got a gun. It's like, all right, well, things change now when the
my ancestors brought the guns, so
exactly, yeah, well, but then your ancestors, yeah, your ancestors also stole it from the out east people. From,
hey man, it's not stealing if you can claim it.
But no, I do think that in general, the idea that everyone can hide behind a keyboard, that everyone can hide behind, well, I can say whatever I want to say. I can stand right here. I can do this. I can do that. And you can't do shit to me. Otherwise, I'll just sue you. It's like, nah, like, there should be a point in time where the judge is like, you know what? Nah, B. Like, hopefully you learned today and you will never do this ever again. You, sir, you owe the court $100 for hitting him, but thanks for doing your civil duty and go ahead and go home. Like, I do think that people would behave differently. Like, I joke all the time that the purge would be a cool thing, but like, just imagine how differently you'd behave if your neighbor that you treated like shit all year could come next door on one night and just murder you and your entire family. You'd behave a little differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think the consequences to actions are very disproportionate, and I mean, it's highlighted even more with social media. Like, social media is very much a place where, like what you said, you can subtweet people to infinity, and as long as you don't say very explicit things, like, you're not going to get banned, you're not going to get suspended, like, nothing's going to really happen to you. Most of the time, you're never going to come into contact with these people that you're talking shit about. So it really does incentivize. It incentivizes inflammatory posting styles, but also it incentivizes seeking controversy, even where controversy doesn't necessarily need to be. And this is why you go to YouTube, you go pretty much anywhere. There are people who have entire, like, social media personas purely dedicated to finding other people's videos and breaking them down and being like, this person's a fucking idiot. That's their entire thing. That's their whole shtick, is finding other people that are staying in their lane, or maybe they're trying to venture out of their lane a little bit. And then there's like, this person's a fucking idiot, and let me tell you why they're a fucking idiot. And, there is a degree of, I understand that, because if you're an expert in your field and they're consistently saying stupid shit about the thing that you're an expert in, it's like, God damn it. Like, let me just do this one more time so that no one else decides to, like, come in into my territory and start, like, doing dumb shit. But I still think that it creates like the
zeal behind it, right? It's like, you're not doing it because, like, oh, this is my civil duty to make sure there's good information out there. You're like, this is fun for me. This is, like, fun to, like, seek and hurt these people.
I don't even know if it's fun, but, like, that's what gets followers. Like,
yeah.
And people are going to share it. People are going to comment on it. And a lot of times, like, depending on the person that you're going after, a lot of other people don't really like that person. So they're like, I agree with you. I'm going to vote this.
Yeah.
And there's a gigantic culture with social media and it's Schadenfreude, whatever, however the fuck you say it, right? It's like taking enjoyment in other people's suffering. And it's sinister, it's kind of fucked up in a lot of ways. And that's one thing I've always disliked about social media, is that it really kind of forces you to look through this one-way mirror at people's lives and, like, what they're deciding to put out. You might follow them because you think that you like them, but whenever they eventually fall, you kind of love it. You like live for it. It's like what we're talking. It's like TMZ, right? Like, no matter how much you enjoy that person as a quote unquote celebrity, whenever you hear about how fucked up their life actually is, you can't look away.
Like the fall of Tiger Woods. Like, that was Like that was like probably a really
Yeah.
good, because like he was America's male sweetheart. Like everyone, black people loved him, white people, like he was Tiger fucking Woods.
Or Bieber, all the stuff that went on with Bieber for such a long time.
Yeah, dude.
Granted, Bieber had a lot of haters.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, it's like he's a fucking kid. He's a kid, and people just love the fact that like Bieber had all of these issues. It's like, bro, why? Why are you rooting for people to suffer and to like? Why are you rooting for people's downfalls? Like that's insanity to me. But there are a lot of people on social media, and clearly you understand this because the Reddit world is the worst with this. But they focus so much on other people that they don't even think about themselves. Like it's so external. Like they can't even turn things back in on themselves to analyze what they're doing and be like, this is insane person behavior. It's insane for me to dedicate so much of my energy to tearing other people down. But again, that is what social media in a lot of ways incentivizes. And I think the fitness industry even more so because there is so much pent up envy for a lot of other people. And granted, a lot of it is like physical envy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wish I looked like that person. But if you wish that you looked like somebody, for, let's say pro bodybuilder, let's keep it simple, a bikini pro, because this I feel like is the most common. You're a young woman, you see this bikini pro, she looks spectacular. 6 months later, you find out she actually has an eating disorder. And 6 months after she competed, she gained 30 pounds. And now she looks nothing like she used to. All of a sudden, that envy that you had for her physique, you no longer have. So you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good feeling for you. So now you feel better than her. So again, it's like we will publicly say we are empathizing with your situation and we're here for you and all those things. But again, it's like what's actually happening inside of us is there's a lot of envy that is pent up with us looking at other people's lives. And it's not healthy. It's really not. And again, social media, it forces people to post the highlights of their life. They're not really posting the lowlights. And if the lowlights come out, it's usually not on purpose or it's not. And
Yeah.
I mean, again, this is something that we've experienced, well, not really personally, but like, we've been
Close enough.
parallel to.
As close as we want to be.
I mean, actually, I've experienced it personally in the past. So like I
Yeah.
do understand. And that personal experience of mine actually was a really eye-opening experience to just how much people tend to care about other people's lives who they've never met, they probably will never meet, and I think it's a sense of wanting to feel important and included in things that are clearly above your status. I hate to say it like that, but it's kind of fucked up, but like if you see Emily Duncan struggling, you want to inject yourself, your opinion into that because you want to feel included. But you're 3 tiers of status below Emily Duncan.
And 100 degrees removed. Like you haven't.
Yeah. You don't belong in that conversation. Like your opinion doesn't fucking matter. So it's a lot of it is people wanting to feel important and understanding that like the lives that they're seeing are generally never going to be their lives. But because of that, again, it's a lot of schadenfreude. I think I'm saying that wrong, but it's just this desire or this euphoric feeling that comes over you whenever you see people suffer. And that to me is always just, I understand it because I felt it before, but it's just such a fucking crazy thing,
No, it is nuts. Before we shift gears to the, I guess, like more conceptual issue, which I'll kick off here in a second. My proposition is, I think everyone should be allowed to box one person a year. Like you literally just like present a nationwide challenge. Like I, Chris Beal, challenge Bryce Calvin to 5 rounds, on X date. We have X amount of time to go ahead, like celebrity death match type shit. Like, let's just go ahead, go in. Well, the thing is, like, I actually think about all the fights that I've been in. And if I think about it, I think 2 of them were like very, very like, no, like we never spoke again. But most of my fights were like at the park, playing basketball, like where we would fight and like bloody, like fight each other, like face, and then have pizza later on, right? Like sometimes it's just like okay, we just move that energy, as a spiritual would say, like whatever, right? Like, hey, I disagree with what you said. That was disrespectful. Actually, I think you're being like, let's solve this right now. And then we just move the fuck on. Obviously, I think it's a gift of being a boy.
It's a thing. Yeah.
But, I do think that there is something to be said for like just being able to like, hey, listen, like I guarantee if I got upset because someone said something about my mom or about my little brother or my best friend, that they would maybe think twice about disrespecting someone else's family again in the future. And they didn't have to die. Nothing bad had to happen. We just got into a fight and you just learned your lesson very quickly. And so I do think that, like you've mentioned before, publicly shaming really bad behavior, like letting people know, like, hey, actually, you're a social pariah now. I'm going to make you feel that because we don't want to incentivize this behavior in the future. Like, people should pay heavy consequences for doing things that are a drag on society.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, like we're very, very aligned there. And I mean, this could be a much longer conversation because I have very strong opinions along this line, but I do think that if you do some fucked up shit, so good example of this, Liver King, right?
Mm.
That motherfucker should have been shamed to eternity to the point where like he should never be on social media again. And I still see random ads that I get hit with where it's like Liver King doing some other shit. I'm like, man,
He knows you're talking about him.
yeah, like just give it up. Just give it up. But yeah, public shaming, I mean, it'll fucking work. It doesn't have to necessarily be like Cersei Lannister through King's Landing type of shit. Like we don't necessarily need that. But, if you do some stupid fucking shit that has repercussions beyond just you, like if you want to fuck yourself over, by all means fuck yourself over. But if you're scamming other people, if you're taking advantage of people, if you're lying to people, any of that, yeah, like you deserve to be publicly outed. I will say, not a huge fan of like the goop style stuff. Again, because I think that it incentivizes false positives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it incentivizes you jumping the gun to call someone out without properly vetting them. I don't know him well enough. It seems to me like he's done a pretty good job of not falling into that trap. But again, like after a while, the followers keep streaming in, people keep sending you their coaches, their teammates, their former friends. Like this person's a scammer, this person's a liar, this person does this does that. I would imagine that there maybe have been some that have fallen through the cracks where it's like this person actually is not that bad, or maybe just made one mistake, but doesn't really deserve to be shamed in front of 500,000 people. Again, it's hard for me to judge, but I'm not a huge fan of like call out culture, like what we talked about. But there should be some level of like, all right, this person's blacklisted. They're blacklisted. Like we just don't associate with this person. We don't let them in anymore. They're done. They fucked up big enough. They're done. Like socially, that's a difficult contract to enforce. But yeah, no, I definitely think that there's something to be lost with things shifting from the real world to the virtual world. In the past, whenever you're in smaller groups in real life, you do something fucked up, the group can actually shame you and they can exile you. Like they're like, all right, you're gone. You're gone. In the virtual world, it's a little bit more difficult to do those things. And you can also skate by undetected while being disingenuous, to put like a very kind term on it, for a long time. And we've seen this happen before too. So, maybe there being a stronger disincentive of being potentially called out, maybe that has to be counter. I don't know. I'm not sure. But, there are a lot of bad actors in the space. And, I think that the development of these wildly inflated egos is extremely, extremely problematic for not just like the content that we're able to consume, but also just how people learn to interact with one another who they disagree with or who disagree with them. If you're Lane Norton and you have millions of followers, or Nipper and you have millions of followers, granted, again, Jeff, I think is good, but I don't think Lane Norton does it very well. And there are a lot of other people that don't do it very well that have huge follower bases. You're a role model to millions of people at that point. They're looking up to you.
You're an educator too.
Yes.
Like you're not just you're an people are learning not just from what you tell them, but by how you behave.
And a lot of times you don't have to be right, but you have to understand and you have to be able to handle being wrong. That to me, that is a much more important trait than always being right, because you're not always going to be right. If you try to always be right, then you're probably just not putting yourself out there enough and expressing your opinions often enough to where you are putting yourself at risk of being wrong. So if you're always playing it safe, sure, you could be right, but then you're just bitch, you're not doing anything. So like at that point, you have to understand, how do I handle whenever I actually am wrong about something? Do I cry about it? Do I yell about it? Do I stomp my feet? Do I throw a temper tantrum? Or do I say, well, you're right. I am going to go ahead and revise my thinking and the things that I say. And I am going to be happy that now I am closer to the truth because of you showing me the light, right? Yeah. That requires putting your ego aside. But a lot of people would rather retain their ego than be right, which is extremely telling to me. So
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, it actually segues us pretty good into like a conclusion here, which is just, I've always been team like humility. Like the minute that someone who doesn't have to step off their pedestal does, and says, "Hey, actually, I was wrong," and I stand to be, and I'm going to put a deliberate effort into not just being, "Oh, I was wrong," but into correcting said wrong.
okay.
You now have that extra, 8 to 10% of my trust. That was probably the hardest to gain, because it's like, I trusted you, but then you could have fallen and I would have not trusted you. But now if you fall again in the future, I'm inherently going to trust you more. I'm going to stand by you longer, because I'm like, no, like, you've admitted being wrong in the past. And that has shown me something about you that is very, very rare. And so, like, I think about the fact that you have these fantastic minds, like these people who know so much shit, whether it's Mike or it's Lane or it's Andrew Huberman or whatever. And like, I haven't seen Andrew get into any sort of like, whatever. But like, you see these guys.
It seems like he has a solid amount of humility about what he knows and what he doesn't know, and whenever he makes errors. Like, not to cut you off, but I do remember there was a thing maybe last year where he posted some statistical probability thing, and he just got it all fucked up. Like it
Yeah.
was a horrendous, and he got called out, and then he went back and corrected it. He's like, that was really, bad. It was an oversight. It's not that I can't do basic math. It was an oversight. And, I do apologize. We went back and revised our shit, right? That is exactly what you should do. If someone calls you out, you should go publicly. It's like, I fucked up. I made a mistake, or I didn't realize that. No. If you want to retain a little bit of your ego, you could be like, it was an oversight.
Yes.
We just see it, whatever. Which most people do, right? Most people aren't going to be like, I can't do math. So it's fine. It's fine though if you're a content creator. But yeah, Huberman has always seemed generally pretty good about that stuff. Would say, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, but like, these people, if they banded together, could do so much more good than they do in these like silos of, let's argue, but let's argue and then personally attack one another. Like, it's not just I have a different opinion than you. It's I want to attack who you are. I want to attack where you studied. I want to attack your clients. I want to burn everything around you so people know that I'm smarter than you. And it's like, you could just disagree and beat them on paper, beat them in research, beat them. And that, because like, I do think that healthy competition in, actually, no, I know more, I'm going to discover more, I'm going to research more and present and educate more. That's good for us, because the more information we have, the better.
Yeah.
But being consistently, oh, well, you either have to believe this or you have to believe that, like the if you fits your macros thing, right? And everyone who rallied for and against it, like, it couldn't just be, hey, I just do it differently. Like, it's easier for me to do it this way. And there are probably some like small underlying like micro things that could be a bit more impactful for high level athletes. And also, we understand that calories in, calories out, and then proper like dispersion of those calories is important. And it seems like if it fits, works for you guys, so cool. But it had to be, no, let's shit on everyone who does macros. Like, let's shit. If you're not doing a meal plan, you're not serious. You're not this, you're not that. And I'm just like, it's just so interesting. And it's funny that, like, to me, you could have banded together and educated people on, hey, actually, you have options, because here's how the science actually works about the food that you choose. And I don't know, it's just a very strange thing. Is when you mentioned the incentive of being dissenting and disjointed and argumentative, it's like, yeah, for likes, but then it also calls into question, what's your intention? Is your intention actually to educate and make the fitness space better, or is your intention to bloat your ego and your own persona?
So there are a couple of points I want to make. A big one, this can explain a lot of people's behavior, is attention is a zero-sum game. There's only so much attention to go around. And if you get more attention, someone else gets less. If someone else gets more attention, you get less. So that incentivizes behavior that is very tribalistic, us against that. Even if you're working towards the same broad humanity, right? We're all humans, we're all working towards the same goals, but it becomes so tribal. And you can break that down into as smaller groups as you want to, but it all becomes in groups versus out groups. Granted, a lot of that is evolution, and there is reasons or are reasons for that. But a lot of them are not really present in the modern world like they used to be, right? So a lot of the tribalistic tendencies that we have are pretty outdated, and we retain them because competition now is over attention. And attention is what drives status. It's in a lot of ways also what drives financial status, money, how much you can make, how successful you can be. The person who can garner the most attention is going to be pretty much top of the hierarchy, right? And you see this even with something like Elon Musk. I generally am a huge fan of Elon Musk's business practices and what he does in his businesses. His personality, very different, right? I think that a lot can be said about that. But if you want to see this idea of like attention as incentive, look at Elon. He is purely driven by the idea of getting more attention, kind of like a teenager, like a teenager who is acting up. But most adults act like that in some way or another. You see it a lot, again, on social media, how people post. Who is trying to garner the most attention? How are they posting? You can almost predict how people will post in the future based on what will get the most attention. And social media is pure attention. Like, you even have metrics for attention, like reach. How broad is your reach? How much attention do you get? You can look at it. You can see the numbers going up or down. Pretty nefarious. Like, that's not good. Yeah. It's not good for your psyche. But again, it incentivizes you to act in a certain way. And then that kind of dominates your personality and your identity. And it leaks over to the real world. Then you have people punching Jeff Nippert in the fucking gym over, modest diss track.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that sums it up really, really well. Because it's really interesting. And like I said, I think that if you are actively leeching or absorbing information from someone that you observe these behaviors, and I do think that it is important for you to vet where you get your information from, but not cease getting information. Because I do think that like there's a difference between like Elon, art and artist, right? Like that being like, I can appreciate the art. Like this guy's really smart. I want a lot of things from him. And also I do filter what he's saying through the lens of knowing that this is his goal. It's not just make everyone smarter. It's so that everyone knows he made them smarter, or everyone knows that this person's not as smart. And if I can vet what I'm listening to, I can pull what is useful, leave what is not, and then continue to move forward. But people don't do that. Obviously, they get attached to personas and individuals, and they fall in love with the ideas of these people. And a person acting out of character causes an impasse, right? A fork in the road where you have to decide, am I going to let go of who I am loving this person, or am I going to decide to hate this person? Which we see people teeter that line over and over and over again. But
the cult of personality. It's a cult of personality.
Yes. Yeah. But I will end this with this. If we're ever in the gym and someone assaults me and you don't immediately jump them, we're not friends anymore. Just an FYI. Like if you don't immediately start beating the shit out of them, like we're not friends anymore.
That's not how big they
are. Thank you, everyone.
If they're Jeff Nippert, I can probably fucking think them or something. But
thanks everyone for tuning in to a long-awaited, after a brief hiatus, podcast. We will be back doing these more regularly. But share, let us know what you think. Let us know how you are, currently processing said situations in the fitness space, and we'd love to hear that. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.